Hi, Tudum sisters, allies, and loved ones. Welcome to As Told by Childless Women, an oral history series that aims to usher our stories into the permanent archives where they have always belonged. I'm your host, Joby Tyson, and the founder of Tudum Global, a media platform for childless women. And when I first envisioned this series, I knew I wanted to take an active role in documenting the narratives of involuntary childless women and the childless experience. As a researcher, I know too well that archives have the power to preserve community memory and influence individual identity. Today's episode gives voice to premature ovarian failure and early menopause. Behind every childless woman, there's a story. And today's guest, Courtney, is hailing from Alabama, is bravely sharing hers with us. Thank you so much, Courtney, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Courtney, just briefly introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. My name is Courtney. I am 37 years old. I'm an aerospace professional, and I live here in Alabama, but was born and raised in Northern California.
Okay. As always, I like to start these conversations from the beginning. So, the best that you can you walk us through your journey from the beginning?
Sure. I was living life, and I had not always been the most healthy person, and I decided it was time to transform my life. So I started to practice holistic medicine. I did a lot of clean eating. I lost 65 pounds on a weight loss journey, just natural, and really taking care of my body and being in tune with what was going on. And in the process of doing this, I decided that I was going to remove my IUD that I had had for many years. And in doing so, I just kind of never re-regulated on a regular cycle. So I would go to the doctor and they were like, well, you've lost a lot of weight, so that's why you're not re-regulating. But I had lost 65 pounds over like an 18-month period. So it wasn't like quick weight loss and I'm not going to get my period anymore. But I just kind of went along with it. Then I did this really big move from California to Alabama, and it was a culture shock, and I didn't have friends. I didn't have very much of a support system here other than my partner. And I was stressed. And I go back to the doctor saying, I still am not really regulating. I would get my period for a few months in a row, and then I would not have it for 6 months. And then I would get it for...
How old are you at this time?
31.
Okay.
And so I, go back to the doctor, and they're like, well, this is a stressful time for you, and stress on your body can really affect your cycle. And they diagnosed me with... They said, like, I was just not settling in, basically, is apparently a thing. And so I listened to them, and I found an acupuncturist here, which had helped me before. So I started working with a great acupuncturist here. And again, it was like regulating a little bit, but not a lot. And then I started having some unexplained weight gain, hot flashes like I have never had in my entire life. I was losing my hair. All of these things were happening. So I go to a new doctor. It's a female. And I tell her everything that's going on. She's like, okay, let's do, complete blood work on you and see what are your hormones doing, because it sounds like an imbalance. Great. So we do that. I leave. I go back in to meet with her once the results were finished. And of course, your results post online first, right? So I've already seen the numbers, and I've seen some things that don't look right. So of course I have to go to Google and research this. And I can see ahead of time before I go in there that my FHS level is at menopause levels.
Okay.
So, she sits down with me and she's going over the numbers, and she goes, this is really what I thought it was going to be, and you have premature ovarian failure. I had no idea what this was. So, I asked, what does that mean? And she explained that basically I was going into menopause at this point, I was 33 and I was going into menopause.
Mm.
So I still don't really know what that means. And she is honest with me that she is not a specialist in this. And, you know, I really need to go meet with somebody else. And then she takes me by the hand and she looks at me and she says, but don't worry because there's other options. And I said, I don't understand what that means. Other options for what? And she said, well, you can adopt or you can have a donor egg. There's other options. So at this point, even though she told me I was in early menopause, I did not realize that that meant I was not going to be able to have kids.
So did you have no detectable eggs for her to advise donor eggs?
So she had not checked my egg reserve. She sent me then to a reproductive endocrinologist, and they did the test all over again. They did a ultrasound that showed I had 1/2 of a functioning ovary left, which is actually gives you a little bit of hope that there's at least something kicking and moving in there still. But then they tested my egg reserve and I had no detectable eggs at that time.
Okay. And so everyone knows premature ovarian failure, also known as primary ovarian insufficiency, results in a menopause-like condition years before normal menopause begins. And women with primary ovarian insufficiency stop producing normal amounts of reproductive hormones, develop hot flashes, as Courtney mentioned, and often it can lead to infertility. I was reading your blog, Resculpting a Woman, and you said on there that my infertility has made me stronger than I could ever imagine myself being. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. You know, I'm young. I'm in my 30s. My friends are all having babies if they haven't already had them. It is in your face 24/7. A month after my diagnosis, my brother and sister-in-law welcomed twin boys into the world. You know, a lot of stuff is right there. And you have to get to this point where you figure out, is this going to control my life and take away my happiness? Or am I going to be this fierce, strong warrior where I still find happiness and still have a fulfilled life and still embrace all of my friends and family and their children? So I just dug deep.
Did doctors explain what was the cause of your primary ovarian insufficiency?
So that's the most frustrating part. There is no real cause for this that they have determined. There are theories that it could be genetics. Nobody in my family has had this happen to them. There are, if you have like autoimmune disorders, that could cause it. I don't have any autoimmune disorders. They claim that it has nothing to do with the IUD. I don't know. They can't tell you why. And I think that is one of the most frustrating parts. Like, you go through this moment in time where you want to know why this is happening to you. And there's no answer.
Well, as a researcher, it would be remiss if I didn't mention some statistics that you're speaking of. The average age for menopause is 51. And as you can see, Courtney spoke about 31. So when you're younger than 40 and your ovaries are no longer making eggs and your periods have stopped, perhaps it may be primary ovarian insufficiency. Experts also estimate that between 10 and 20% of all women with primary ovarian insufficiency have a close blood relative with a condition. That was not the case with Courtney, though. And compared with women who go through natural menopause, women undergoing premature menopause spend a greater portion of their lives without the protective benefits of their own estrogen. And that can put you in a greater risk of menopause-related health problems. So with that being said, were you affected by any menopause-related health problems?
I am not yet. So now today at 37, I am in full menopause. I no longer have a period at all. The dealing with just the natural transition that, you know, most women go through anyways, it's just a little bit more frustrating at this age. My problem is I'm high risk and cannot take any type of hormone replacement therapy. So one thing that they are very strict about is every 5 years I have to go have bone scans done because I'm high risk for osteoporosis now.
Okay. So that is a menopause related health problem that could be a concern in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So going through menopause early can be difficult and upsetting. How have you coped?
I mean, I have my bad days. I'm not going to lie. I get very frustrated and, you know, I'm not sleeping and I'm sweating all the time and my hair is falling out and people are looking at me when I have a hot flash, like, you shouldn't be having hot flashes. I cope with it by, I stay very active, you know, to help with my bone strength and help with the weight gain that comes unexplained. I do yoga to quiet my mind and find some inner peace. And I am a very avid solo hiker. I go out and hike miles and miles and miles by myself just to find that grounding and balance in something that I love.
So is hair loss a symptom of premature ovarian failure?
It is. It's actually a part of menopause. Right now, they're telling me that I'm having some problems with my thyroid, so my hair loss has been really bad lately. You know, handfuls at a time. Yeah, so it's part of your hormones not being in balance.
Wow. So how have you been psychologically impacted by all of this and childlessness?
So in the beginning, you know, I think it's the deepest sadness I have ever felt in life. And then you go through this this period of anger. I was mad. I was mad because I didn't know why this was happening to me. I was mad at people who got to have kids that I didn't feel like they deserved to have kids because they were abusive or whatever reason. I was mad at people who were close in my life that weren't supporting me in the way that I needed to be supported. And I had to get past that because I also didn't know how I needed to be supported, right? It wasn't their fault. This is not a normal thing. People don't know what to say or do to you to support you through it. And, you know, there's times that I'm scared. The reality is I'm scared that when I get older, you know, who's going to be there to take care of me? Like I plan on being there for my parents. It's a really scary thing. So psychologically, you know, you get into these deep, dark places. But like I said, I made this decision early on that this was not going to control my life and it was not going to identify me. So in making that decision, I really focused on staying positive and being grateful for the life that I do have that many people envy. And I just allow myself to have the bad days without getting stuck there.
Okay. With the social stigma attached to childlessness and infertility, what has it been your experience existing in the world as a childless woman?
Well, I think that we all probably have battled that you don't feel like you're completely a woman or like you're missing something that all of these other women have. And it's a really difficult thing because you go through this alone. There aren't really a lot of support groups. And especially what I found here living in the South, this is really not something that's talked about. It's not a thing that's addressed. When I was looking for support groups, the closest one was an hour and a half away, and it was like a quarterly meeting. You know, there's this hush hush, we don't talk about these things stigma that comes with infertility, and that's not my approach to it. I feel a strong need to talk about it and share my story so that I can support the people who are quietly suffering.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And knowing what you know now, what would be the piece of advice that you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Yeah. You know, the reality is, you know, I did have a period of time where I could have had a baby, and I was not taking care of my body, and I was not in tune with what was going on. And I would do a better job at being an advocate for myself and really being tuned into what was going on with my body, because I think there were signs early on. But I also would do the same thing that I did. You know, I am not going to have kids. I am not going to use a donor egg. I am not going to adopt a child. It is not the direction that I chose as my path. And for most of my life, I have always said, I don't have to have kids. If it happens for me, great. And if it doesn't, then it's not my path. So I think that preparing myself in that way when I was so young, it made this transition easier. Did it still hurt? Yeah, I was actually very surprised with my reaction to it, because it wasn't like this have to thing that I had. But I think that was one thing that, you know, I prepared myself to not really set these expectations in life.
So you just mentioned that you had signs prior. What were those signs that when your body was giving you clues?
Yeah, you know, I was always somebody that had very light cycles. I was very late to getting a period. I had light cycles, and I had some things going on with my weight and stuff that was very abnormal if it was not related to hormones. And instead, you know, I just like did not focus on it, and I had 1,000 of excuses of why it probably was, and I didn't just stop and ask the questions and demand the answers.
So you mentioned that they said you were at high risk to use hormones. Why is that?
So my family has several different factors of blood clotting.
Okay.
And there's high blood pressure and stroke in my family. So I've never actually really been able to take hormones. The Mirena IUD was an acceptable hormone replacement type thing for me, because it has like topical hormones mostly.
Okay, got it. I firmly believe that with or without children, we all have meaning and purpose in our lives. So I would like to ask you, what brings you happiness?
You know, happiness for me is being with my friends, my family, being alone. I am very much a person that needs to spend time alone to just kind of recharge. I'm a little bit of an introvert, and I just love being outdoors in nature. Those things just bring me happiness. My nephews that are twins, even though it was real hard to be around them in the beginning, like they are my dudes. I would do anything for them, and I just adore every minute that I get to spend with them.
Awesome. Have you figured out your life's purpose?
I think my life purpose is to really just share my story and have a voice for the women who choose to not talk about it, which is completely okay. That everybody deals with this differently. But if a portion of my story can give them some type of normalcy, or I'm not crazy, or I am not alone in this, I think that's a powerful thing. I just want to, you know, share my story and show everybody that, you know, I can't have kids, but I can have a really beautiful life, and I can still be a very fierce, independent woman without kids.
Absolutely. And I know I mentioned Resculpting a Woman blog. Tell everyone a little bit about that and how they can find Resculpting a Woman.
Yeah, so I started this blog many years ago, actually, when I changed my lifestyle and I was getting into health and wellness and holistic healing, and I was on my weight loss journey, and I had so many friends watch this massive transition in my life that was done just by me. I did it by myself in my own drive. And I actually had been I went back to college and was taking some classes to get my bachelor's in health and wellness. And we had to do a project of starting a blog. So that is originally what started my blog, and it was really focused on health and wellness. And when I started walking through this infertility journey, I decided to share some of that on there. And you can find, I wrote a letter to the child I'll never have. I write about the really hard times and how to set boundaries and be okay with not being okay, but not getting stuck there. So you can find me on Instagram at resculpting_a_woman. And you have a link there that goes to my blog site.
Okay. Thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing your story with us. Do you have any last words?
Just take it day by day. We're all in this together. And, just everyone's story is different. Be okay with where you're at on your journey and just keep going.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
it will help a lot of other women. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Childless woman, you're beautiful. Child-free woman, you are enough. This journey might not be easy, but we're in this together so we can get through this together by owning our voice. Thank you for your time and attention today. Please like, subscribe, share, and download this episode. From Totem Global, I'm your host, Joby Tyson. See you next time on As Told by Childless Women. To support this series, please visit astoldbychildlesswomen.com.